of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the school board workshop for January 28th, 2025 will now come to order. Bear with me 1 minute while I pull up my agenda. We will begin with a presentation from Take Stock in Children.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Charmaine Reynolds, and I serve as the Association Director of Teen Programs with the YMCA. I'm here to talk to you all about Take Stock in Children. By show of hands, is anyone familiar with what Take Stock in Children is? Okay, good. All right. So for those who do not know what Take Stock in Children is, we are a state-funded program, so it's all across the state of Florida. It's a nonprofit organization, and it's geared towards and it started by educators. So they understood that there was a barrier for students to go to college by financial means. So we, as the YMCA, we take over for Clay County, and we support the students of Clay County by providing them hope and scholarship to go to school. So we want to eliminate that financial barrier so that they can too have an education beyond high school. I like to look at us as an entity of what Clay County Board of Education is doing for the students. We also provide them with a mentor to help guide them and support them through the process of life, as well as different challenges that they may be experiencing within school. And we provide them with a college success coach. Our college success coach gives them the tools that they need to prepare for college. So the students that we select into the program are underrepresented youth, and they may not have the resources on what do I do after high school. Some of them don't even have that desire because of their circumstances. So we want to eliminate that barrier, and with that college success coach, they help them step by step. No matter what grade they're in, we guide them, select them as early as 7th grade, and we select them up to 10th grade now, and we give them the tools in 7th grade, what you need to do to prepare for college or post-secondary school, because we also offer the awareness of trade school. And when they graduate, we provide them a 2-year tuition-based scholarship to be used in any school in the state of Florida. So here, I also brought Ms. Janet. She is a big advocate for Take Stock in Children. She serves as our advisory council chair, and I just want to bring her up to share kind of her experience of working with Take Stock and just how we can have your support in the program across Clay County.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Many of you know who I am, and I was always take stock, take stock. Well, now I'm retired, and I have nothing but time, and I spend 95% of my volunteer time with Take Stock. The program has been a great program for many of our students here in Clay County. We have had some amazing students with amazing futures. Clay High has 2 very well-known Take Stock graduates, Dr. Ross Jones, who is now with Shands, University of Florida Shands. He's a director of family medicine. Helen Quinn, who is also a director with one of the Take Stock programs. We have a pharmacist, Dr. Elia, that came out of Orange Park High School. I've been with the program for a little over 23 years, mentoring, and also when I was here in Clay County and Duval, I was the contact person for the schools I was working for. So one of our main purposes today is to really get you to know about the program. As with any organization, change always occurs. And I've been retired almost 3 years, and to look at who's at what school, I'm like, who is that person? I don't know that person. So more or less a real acquaintance of our administrative staff, our guidance counselors, and our teachers, because those together can build and help us find those students. I was the contact person for Greenville Springs Junior when I was there. I was the contact person for Orange Park Junior when I was there, and at Oak Leaf High School. And many students are in these schools, but they're not going to come to you and say, hey, my family is socioeconomically challenged. One of the key ways that we determine these students, number one, by free or reduced lunch. Once you find a student that qualifies in that category, that's the key definer as to will this student qualify. From there, you look at grades, attendance, and also their achievement on the Florida State exam. So with that.
Thank you. So what I provided for you all at the table, you will have an overview of Take Stock, the impact that Take Stock has had on students in the state of Florida as a whole over the last 2 years, and I provided specifically for Clay County the impact that Take Stock has had on Clay County students. If you would direct your attention to the bottom, since the YMCA has taken over Take Stock for Clay County, we have served over 257 students, awarding approximately about $1.3 million in scholarships. So again, as an extension to Clay County Board of Education, as Ms. Janice Tucker stated, that your support is needed in just advancing the awareness within the program, within your schools, and let them know that this is an entity to support and enhance the education purposes of the students in Clay County. We're here to support. We understand that there are students out there who, again, don't have the desire or understanding that they too can be successful. And with Take Stock in Children, we want to eliminate that myth and that barrier of financial means that they can too be successful. So again, with your support, it just letting the teachers know, and the principals know that we are here to support and help. I think that'll be very valuable in the success of the program here in Clay County and the success of our students. And we know that's why we're all here, to make sure that every student in Clay County is successful. And again, Take Stock just want to be a part of that. And that is my 5 minute, probably took a little more, but that is my spiel. And I will open up the floor for any questions that you may have.
Anything from the board?
I would just say it's a great organization. I've seen it firsthand as a principal make a difference in young people's lives. Miss Tucker and I go way back, and she's good people that's working hard for students along the way. I think maybe a next step is I'll invite you to a principal's meeting, because I heard you talking about connecting back with schools. That might be a good avenue to give a couple minute spiel to the principals to bring it to their attention once again.
Yes.
To promote the program.
So I just had a quick question. How do we support it? The schools know about it?
Schools do know about it. Our guidance folks, now called school counselors, don't call them guidance. School counselors know about it, as well as our career coaches, to look for students that would benefit from it and meet the criteria for it. And do a fantastic job. John Wakefield, that many of you know, John's been around for a long time. That he's veteran in Clay County and does a great job with kids. So I think the idea of just promoting it from both ends, looking for the mentor side, who can mentor and help out, and then what students that are out there that would meet the criteria that we would help. You've heard me say probably 1,000 times, it takes a whole team of people. Part of that is groups and organizations like Take Stock and their part and their contribution to what we do. So we thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, my contact, I do have extra impact reports on the back table if anyone would like to review it. My contact is on there, so if anyone have any questions. And as Mr. Browski mentioned, mentors, we are always recruiting to have mentors to help support these students. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And our next item is to review policy development with HR. So is Ms. Trotman leading this one, or?
Tom and Annette from Neola.
Hi, nice to see you both. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Madam Chairman, Board Member, Superintendent. My name is Tom Whitmer, and with me is Annette Martinson. We're from Neola. Neola is a contractor that the Clay Board engaged in to help with the overhaul of the school board policy manual. And we have been working since the first workshop was on the bylaws. And that was on June 4th, so we've had 6 months of real work. And we're now getting to the point where we were able to start presenting these in workshops to chapter by chapter or groups of chapters. May I say here that the staff that we've worked with has been excellent. They've done the work ahead of time. They're knowledgeable and informed and really on target with these policies. I think Annette would agree that Clay is a model policy. The district for Neola really has been excellent. We've made great progress. What you have today is about 200 documents. There are some duplications between the chapters. There's 3 chapters, one for administrators, one for instructional staff, and one for support staff to cover everybody. And there are, like I said, about 200 policies. So rather than try and go page by page through each and every single one and spend 15 seconds on it, I would suggest, Madam Chairman, that it would be more appropriate to have entertain questions and discussion about particular topics that the board members may see that they want to talk about. There are a lot of duplications because such things as leave apply to all 3 categories, and so those are the same. But there's also very individualized policies for certain chapters. And the ones probably have the fewest number, or the most number of non-duplicated policies. So if you see a policy that you're interested in and have a concern about, there may be a similar policy, same or even an exact policy, with the same first number on it. It would just be 1 or 3 or 4, but the remainder of the number would be the same. So, does anybody have any?
You want to start off with the 1,000?
Let's start off with the 1,000,
Yeah, and just see what kind of questions or areas of discussion for the 1,000s that
All right,
might
so
be
for
out
the
there.
1,000s board members, were there any, Ms. Hinton?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, whatever you'd like to.
So I really, honestly, I just want to give some credit, more credit is deserved, other than giving myself credit for reading the 8-point, the 8 font in this entirety twice. But I wanted to say that I read this twice because that's our job, right, policy. And I was really, really impressed that I had like 3 things that I wanted to talk about. I was also grateful that we had duplication throughout, so thank you to everybody who was working on this. We went through this kind of similar with our section, and I know that it can be very tedious and hurt your brain a little bit. So one of the things, if we look at, first of all, when we strike out something, so I want to, page 8, for instance.
Could you give us a policy number? Because
Yes.
we don't have the book.
I will. 1030. And it's page 2 of 2, I think. Page 8 it says on the top of this document. This is just a general question I think I just want answered, but it's not really specific.
Yes, that's a policy on the superintendent of schools.
Yeah, so I see sometimes that we strike out what's law. Like, so for instance, like, the superintendent shall further comply with the following. So it says pursuant to FS 1001.427, that is,
Can you just give us a reference number? I'm sorry, you may have said, what was the reference number in the document?
you mean not the page, but the,
Policy number.
it was,
It's policy number 1030.
1030,
Yeah.
got it. Thank you.
yeah.
Sorry, I just want to make sure.
1030, the second page.
Yeah, I'm on, in our book, that's numbered, I'm on page 8, but that doesn't help. Page 8.
It's best that we have the policy.
10,
It's policy 1030.
Thank you.
1030. This is a general question, it's not really something I wanted to talk about. 1030, when we strike out something that's actually the law, why do we do that?
I'm going back in the.
I think,
A, B, and C, so it
Yeah.
references the statute, and then we struck it out.
I think, well, first of all, it's not necessary to duplicate the law in a policy. It isn't. In fact, it's discouraged by legislatures. But that is the law, and those paragraphs appear elsewhere in the policies, I believe. They're in,
I didn't see it, but that doesn't mean anything.
and they may have thought they would be. They are just boilerplate language from the statute.
It's repeated statute, so they must have decided that they didn't want it, it didn't need to be repeated again.
So it's,
I would kind of add to that, if it's in statute, you're obligated to follow that. We follow all statutes, so it's not needed in there. As you can see, it's kind of lengthy as it is. So I think sometimes when making that decision, you look at it and you go, is that really necessary to put that into a policy? Otherwise, we would have to repeat all of Florida statute somehow within this book.
all right, so when we strike things out for the most part, it might be somewhere else.
Could be somewhere else, or if it's simply regurgitating the statute or a requirement of the statute, it's not needed because it's in statute already.
Okay, so then I have my first real question. I'll give you the policy number. 1010,
What page?
page 3 in the administrative. And so I promise there's only two things that I'm going to want to talk about today. And this one's a little bit lengthy because I had to do some research to make sure I understand why I wanted to say what I was saying. And so in this original Neola document, there was a line that said the board shall retain oversight supervision of such procedures. And it has been, over the last couple of years, procedures have been something that we have gone back and forth on, should we not be involved in the media procedures? Should we not? Maybe we could be, maybe sometimes like the media procedures policy, we did vote on adopting the procedures. And so I actually had a little bit of confusion about this procedure part. So I went to the document, the Florida School Laws document, and I read the general powers of the superintendent 15 times, and I read through the general powers of the school board because I'm trying to understand the relationship. The first thing I do understand is that we do have clear powers, and I'm not saying that we don't, but I have to get this over here too as well. So I didn't do this to be like, I guess have an up on anybody. That's not why. I have this pin on today. I want to at least let you know, true nobility is being superior to your formal self. Ernest Hemingway. And every day, and this board and district have done a great job. We have looked inward and found better ways for the last 2 years since I've been on the board to do things more effectively. Our website looks beautiful and fresh. I mean, we have done, I would say, one of the most highly effective boards in the entire state of Florida, and that's because of our working relationship with the district. And so together, so I wanted to understand together where this procedure falls, responsibility for what. So in there it said the board shall retain oversight supervision of such procedures. Well, that didn't really mean a whole lot to me because you listen to what we say and you answer questions as a district. But when you go through the actual laws in the book, there are quite a few adopt and provide rules, adopt procedures. The school board shall, along with the district, adopt procedures. At a minimum, the procedure must require. If you go through and you actually look at the intent of what the law was, it became clear to me that both sides, the district and the school board, have very distinct responsibilities when it comes to procedure, like provide procedures for supplemental powers of duties of the district school board, provide procedures, use technology, procedures. We actually adopt policies and procedures is riddled throughout the entire section 1001, which is the powers of the school board. In addition, in section 1001.42, there are procedures adopted for school advisory councils. There are procedures is literally in our language. It has nothing to do with developing procedures. And so my understanding after I read this, when you get to the superintendent section, it also talks as the executive officer developing rules and provisions and procedures for us, and we both have to work together. The quote that I said, to have discussions on this is to develop that deeper understanding that we need to be very, very effective. When you are looking at the superintendent's powers, it says, establish a process for review and approval of district-wide policies and procedures through the formal delegated authority of the school board. So I'm asking, if this is just to retain oversight of supervision of procedures, it makes sense to me. So in my simple mind, this is what it means. We develop a policy. There's a procedure that makes the policy effective. Why would we not have at least some oversight or understanding of that procedure and be able to give feedback on procedures? Because policy is useless, absolutely useless without procedures. And when I say useless, unless procedures are followed the way they're written, that opens us up for lawsuits. Not the fact that we have procedures, that we work on procedures. I also feel like I judge for this organization called Incubate Debate. And the whole concept of Incubate Debate is through discourse, to bring out the truth and what is best. And in our case, it is our discourse, procedures and policies and working together that will make us better in the pursuit of truth to optimize student achievement. And so I'm not saying we have any more powers than we do. I'm just saying to strike out the parts about oversight is a little bit concerning to me, because we should always be talking about the procedures that make our policies work. And I think there was one more part to that, probably.
So Ms. Hanson, to be clear, you want to put the board shall retain oversight supervision of such procedures back into the...
Yeah, just oversight, yeah.
Okay.
As it's within our legal right to do so.
All right. Can, Mr. Albera, what is your thoughts on that?
I don't have any objection to that.
Ms. Gilhausen?
I don't have any objection to it either. That was my understanding, that was the previous Neola policy, or is that our?
Neola.
That was Neola's.
Yes, so that was just Xed out. Ms. Clark?
I actually had it highlighted as well, but I would like to ask the folks from Neola why it was removed. Is it necessary to put back in? Is it covered somewhere else?
There is a policy on the creation of procedures for the superintendent. We'll come to that. It's in the same section. It's 1030.01, development of administrative procedures.
So Tom, if I could, just a couple things. One, just to kind of understand the topic in which Ms. Hanson brings out, the oversight meaning, hey, there's discussion about this and feedback is given from the board to the district about the implementation is totally natural piece of that. But let me be abundantly clear. The ability to direct staff is invested within the superintendency. The board has no authority to direct staff to do anything. So when you look at that and you're talking about how to actually implement a procedure, the only person that can implement the procedure is through the superintendent's office, not through the board. The board has no authority to direct any employee to do any action. So when you look at how do you implement a policy, it would seem to me that those procedures need to be directed through the office of the superintendent. I think that that's well established across the entire district, across the entire state. I think our attorney can weigh into such a statement that I just made. That's a true fact accepted across the entire state.
It is, but this just says oversight. It doesn't say we're in charge or we're writing them or anything like
Right,
that.
so
It just says
oversight to me would mean feedback into the policy, not directing anybody to do anything. I don't know how to say that directly, but Mr. Blocker, you want to weigh in?
I don't think it means to direct anybody.
It just says oversight.
I just want to make sure that we're clear that if we add the language, what that means, right? So it means feedback within the procedure, but the board doesn't have the authority to direct people when it comes to the implementation.
Also, there has been boards across the state that if, for example, the media policy, they have actually included board procedures within the policy.
Yeah.
So, because they were very specific on how they wanted it followed.
That can happen.
Okay.
Sometimes procedures are very important to the interests of somebody. In our discrimination policies, anti-discrimination policies, the procedures are in the policy because they need to be.
Okay.
That's where they really meet the definitional rules that affect somebody's substantial interest.
Mr. Walker.
Sure. So just to draw everyone's attention to, I think, 1030.01, I think I understand what you're saying, Mrs. Hanson. You want to see, that consistency. But if you look at 1030.1, at the very bottom paragraph, it says, as long as the provisions of these administrative procedures and handbooks are consistent with board policy. So I think that the message here is in the spirit of kind of what you've outlined, that the policies that the board creates, the procedure that the superintendent creates are consistent with those policies. But that's not directing staff, because the way y'all's roles are set, y'all have a very unique, specific, special role. Y'all are the custodians and the trustees of the district, but the executive role really falls under the superintendent. So the policy, or the policies that y'all create must be consistent, or the procedures that the superintendent creates must be consistent with your policies.
That's the oversight piece that they're.
That's oversight. So y'all, and not saying this would happen, but
does the procedure meet the policy?
correct.
Why strike it out?
I guess you're having board consensus for us to leave that in instead of striking out.
Well, I didn't give consensus to that.
Well, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 consensus. So board majority. We have board majority for consensus on that.
I have no objection to that. The objection would be that as long as we know what the oversight is. The oversight is on the congruence of the policy and the procedure, not on the directing of the procedure.
Well, it clearly says that, you're right, in here, so yeah.
Right.
I mean, there
Okay,
is
yeah.
a distinct difference between,
Totally good with adding that back, with
Two
So
different-
with that
how about we add
understanding.
that additional language then? So that
So what
it-
we'll do is I've made a note of that. We'll go ahead and we'll add that additional language because there appears to be board consensus.
So I mean
on
the
it.
additional language that you just said about how oversight is limited to congruency of procedure with policy. So
Well,
that
it's in
it's
state
spelled out.
statute, so I don't
Yeah.
think you need to regurgitate it again.
yeah.
And I think it's well documented here what that means, right? The board doesn't have the authority to direct any
The word
staff. The
oversight.
oversight is the oversight on the congruence of the policy and the procedure. It's not the directing of how the procedure is implemented by staff.
Okay, so
We can make that change.
we'll put that back in. Ms. Hanson, do you have any further?
From section 1000, there was something I talked to the superintendent about, but I can't
Sure,
find it
could you-
right now. Is it in 1000 or is it?
What page is that on, Ms. Trotman? The
There's a
social
lot in
media?
here.
Social media was under instructional personnel, not administrative.
Is in the next section?
3213.
Oh, is it support?
3213. So we get the 3,000, we can
Okay.
cover that.
All right.
Are you good on 1,000?
Yes, pretty much, I mean, will procedures be available?
Yes.
And, because I know that we don't do procedures electronically, but do we create things like a standard operating procedure for the policies and they're
Yes,
available?
depending on the policy itself, how in-depth the procedure is available. Like, for example, the procedure on books is well-established, and that procedure's, available in writing. Not every procedure, not every policy or working in the district has a written procedure.
If I could just, Madam Chair, if I could just highlight, so the media policy is an example where the board wrote very specific policies that really triggered very specific procedures. There's some policies that are gonna be more broader
Yeah.
and more open to application. So when y'all write a policy that's very specific about steps, that in some ways makes it easier for the superintendent to, because it's taking, but then others are more broad and more direct. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's a classic example of the board and the district working together, because implementing that is very tricky. And those procedures were written directly into the policy on how that will be done and provide clear direction, because in that particular case, there was some important information that the board had to clarify that we didn't feel like from the district. We should be the ones that clarify that, because it's really a board decision, like when we went to the parental advisory part of that and what that means. It was very important to get that from the board, because that really fits into the board's lane of that. So you would see that some policies do have some procedures written within that, but there is a clear distinction there between the two.
So I guess that then, because of the conversation, on page 9, 1030.01, and I understand the separation of the powers when it comes to the procedures, but it seems like we struck out what you just said.
What's that?
It says here, when the content or procedure meets the definition of this rule, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the board shall adopt said administrative procedures. When in the judgment of the superintendent, adoption by the board is advisable, the adoption of said procedure shall be recommended by the superintendent. So,
I think it's important to note, not every policy or thing that happens within the district has a set of written procedures for that. The procedures are given to the superintendency or the district at large, if you want to call it that, because they have to implement it. They would have the knowledge of what can be implemented and what can't be implemented under the policy, which is why it originates there. The oversight of the board is the oversight on whether the procedure matches the procedure itself, not on the implementation of it or the staff involved in it or those kinds of things. That's the distinction between the two.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just, if I can.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So just one more point, I think this is helpful as we go through this. You always want to think when these policies are being written, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have much smarter attorneys in the room than me. You're really writing these policies not for this group, it's who reads these policies 5, 6, 7 years from now.
Yeah.
You want to write them in a way where it's not open to interpretation later, where it's a clear spirit, so when people are reading a statute or a law or a policy, there's clarity. Lawyers make a living because they're dissecting policies because people disagree on how to apply, interpret them. So as y'all go through this exercise, we want to make sure that these are healthy conversations that you're having among yourselves with the superintendent to make sure there's agreement. So later for future boards, future superintendents, there's a clear understanding of what the intent of the authors of the policy was. Does that make sense?
That's why I suggested we leave the language in, because there seemed to be a disagreement about what that language meant. So I thought if we leave the language in and then further clarify what statute says about what board oversight is,
We can do that.
But if I'm the only one who feels that way, if y'all think it's redundant. But
Well, yeah, I think we looked at the overview part, and we're concerned that maybe that word would not be interpreted.
Right, so define it
Define it,
in the
yeah.
policy.
See, well, I mean, oversight and direction is two different
Yeah.
definitions, so
But the
I feel like
the oversight is of the procedure
comprehension.
versus the policy. The oversight is not over the direction of
I know, but it
oversight staff.
specifically states that. I just think it's kind of like we're reading too much into this. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
perhaps we are. That's what happens when you get like one word, everybody focuses on the one word,
Well,
what
that's
it means, right?
Well, let's use common sense and let's see, oversight means something completely different than direct.
Right, so oversight of the
It just means
procedures
that, hey,
versus policy.
we're watching to make sure that, hey, these procedures that you have aligned with the cell phone policy, they're actually being followed because they align with our policy, right? Not saying, hey, I direct you to go do X, Y, and Z because
Right, you're
whatever.
simply,
I
you're
think that's where it gets blurry, because it's not, we can't determine if staff are following the policy or are
Correct.
implementing it. That's the
I
superintendent.
mean, we can determine that by walking into a school and figuring it out, but my point is,
If you were to see something like that, though, the
Right.
appropriate channel
On
is
an-
not.
on an
we
all
need
the
to
time
go
basis,
to the
not-
superintendent.
right.
But that's what I'm saying, I think we're reading too much into direct and oversight. They're two different definitions, and I think we're trying to flip them, so.
Right, but I think it's important to have this discussion, so I appreciate it. What my interpretation of that wording doesn't mean that you walk into one school, see 3 students with a cell phone, and then determine that the cell phone policy isn't being implemented.
Well,
Right,
that would
and
be.
that's not what it, that's not what it,
Not oversight, two different things.
now we're taking it extreme, that's not what I.
I think we documented this it's on video now, so it's like,
Yes.
we've all said
What we
it.
need, yeah.
So I'm totally good with it.
I found the other piece is in the administrative section that I called you
What
about.
page is that?
Page 78.
70.
Can you tell me what thing it is, because I got my notes, I didn't bring my book.
So this will be under 1213, student supervision and welfare. I think it's in all 3 sections, actually. So if we talk about it once, for me, I'm done with it.
So which letter is that?
It is, I have an arrow down there by L and M. M is what we struck out, so I think, so it says administrators are discouraged from engaging or shall not engage students in social media and online networking media such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So that's in 3 sections, so it's administrators, instructional, and staff. The reason shall not engage is the side that I'm leaning on, is because we purchased Apogee. And Apogee was purchased for, and Mr. Rocky can help me probably better with this language here, but Apogee was purposely bought for communication, simplicity. Everybody will have class rosters, coaches can, am I wrong, Ms. Dennison? Coaches can contact their students. It is our app, we developed our app. In my opinion, as a teacher, we should not be on social media with our students. And we have provided a way, a very safe way, and a very effective way for every employee to communicate with parents and students. So maybe prior to Apogee, discouraged, but I believe with Apogee, they should be using Apogee, or we're kind of like fighting each other. I mean, this is like, we purchased something for a reason. I don't have to have a lot of words about it, but I firmly believe it shall not engage students in social media on their private stuff, and it should be done through our business. Is that
So-
right, Ms. Dennison?
So, Ms. Troutman, what was the discussion or?
The reason, when we first started having our discussion, Apogee wasn't
Right, that's what I thought.
Okay. And also the other discussion that we had is in Clay County, it's such a close-knit community, and because students can be so broadly defined, administrators shall not engage students. That could be any student. So, and for an easy example, like my nephews, okay, are students. If I friend them on Facebook, I have violated that policy because they're a student of Clay County.
Well, they're also your family.
So, but they're a student of Clay County. So because it's so broadly, so one of the things, because we discussed, because it was brought to us that this was a concern, which we all agree, is maybe we could put the word administrators, and this would carry to all the other policies. Administrators shall not inappropriately engage students.
Or can it be like family members or something? I mean,
You know, or it could be
Inappropriate is
your best
subjective.
friend's,
Well, that's
you
the
know,
same thing, you
child,
have to
like,
define
I have
appropriate.
when he was still a senior and he was applied to the Air Force Academy. So I friended him because he sought advice on, because I went through that process with my other son. He sought advice and encouragement and, you know, and I would give him high fives on, hey, you're doing the right thing and things like that. Well, he was a student. I was engaging him not really as an administrator. My title was administrator. His title was Air Force applicant. That was our engagement, but that actually would have been violation the way the policy
so
is written.
that's very rare. I mean,
It is, but it would be a
honestly, we have
violation.
40,000 students, 2,600 something teachers, I don't know how many support staff. We're talking, I mean, that's, for me, common sense is maybe then Facebook might not be the best medium for that. I mean, I don't know. All I know is we spent a lot of money, and Apogee was not there when you went through this originally. It is there now. And if we put gray area words such as inappropriate, that's subjective. In the past, we have had teachers using, when I was teaching, I know teachers were using social media inappropriately. And so inappropriate is a word that I'm having a problem with. Because why invest in something if we're not doing it for the right reasons? We invested it for the right reasons. I think on very rare occasion, I mean, for me, I would probably just pick up the phone then and talk to the kid, but I don't know what the board thinks about it, but we did invest in something that's very safe for our teachers, students, and we created that app to make sure everybody was in that safe ground. And when we're talking about appropriate ways to use social media, every person is different in that belief, and I'm not sure.
I'll just point out another instance that pops into my mind, and I'm blanking on the student's last name, which I shouldn't say it anyway, but we had a student in our district who was actually we've had several, who are very involved politically and in leadership roles at their schools, and they use social media to network with me and with you guys, and so in that instance, we would be violating the policy to be friends with somebody who is a student at a school on a social media page.
Well,
You know
no,
what I'm saying?
I wouldn't, because I really don't have any friends. So no, we're talking about people, I guess, who have media friends.
Right.
But the thing is, though, now I could contact people. Like, I don't know, I think this is a
Maybe
very
what we-
shady.
Maybe what we need, that's why I kind of lean towards leaving the language as it is, because then if you start to pick it apart and you really want to narrow down, you're going to have to get lengthy in your words so that you don't create an unintended consequence for a policy.
But legally, let's say we have a teacher who does something inappropriate. Are discouraged. It's not illegal to do something inappropriate. I mean, this is the problem with this language.
I think it would be.
It would be
It
according to.
depends. It depends, we don't know what
The
inappropriate
inappropriate
is.
is already being handled. If there's inappropriate communication with students, that's handled through professional practices, through the principles of professional conduct. But I do believe, and Tom and Annette, I do believe there is a separate policy on social media. You stated that's not part of
We
these.
haven't finished with it yet, it's in the 7,000 chapter.
That would more define, whereas this is a broad statement so that all employees know, hey, if you're on social media, it has to be appropriate. And I think as professionals, we're able to define that. But I don't know what the social media policy is because it was not my section, but would that be the more appropriate place to put the details of what should and should not?
Yes, you certainly could even name the app. There's no reason you can't put the name of the app in the policy.
Yeah.
And say that this is the preferred.
To contact students tied to them or students in their school and to better define that. And so that it's not broad district-wide.
And we would do that in the social media policy?
In the 7,000.
I don't have that policy, so, but he said there
But
is
that's
one
where
and
we
it
would
seems
do
like
that.
that would be the appropriate place
It
to.
could be done.
To define what inappropriate, Mr. Blocker, Mr. Blocker?
Oh,
I
but-
see, he's right there.
No, I ring a bell. So, I think what's important is, use an example of Mrs. Troutman used. So the superintendent, you have to have some discretion, right? So, and what Mrs. Troutman did by contacting, was it your nephew, your son's in the Air Force, correct? I mean, does that really violate what y'all are trying to do? Like if she reaches out to her son and talks to him? The purpose of this policy is protect children from potential predators, right? So there has to be some discretion, and that's why you have the superintendent that can interpret that and make that. If, Mrs. Gilhousen reached out to a student, I mean, does that really, it may violate the words of the policy, but it doesn't violate the spirit of the law. Law enforcement, courts have found law enforcement has discretion. They can make a determination if they make a stop, they can make a determination whether to file charges or not. So it would be the same thing, just because that situation, I think a reasonable observer would look into that and say, well, I mean, it's her son, or Mrs. Gilhousen is reaching out to someone that's part of a political club. This is not some type of predatory practice. So I would keep that in mind, that these type of, even though it may violate the spirit of the law, the real purpose, the words of the law, the real purpose between this statute is to discourage students from becoming friends with their teachers and vice versa. That's really the purpose. Yes,
So I do like what Ms. Hanson's saying about apogee. And I don't know if it's more appropriate to do that in the 7,000, because we did go down that road in order to streamline communication, and I understand that, and I'm with you 100%. I'm just wondering if it's better to handle that in the 7,000 section policy versus this one, as the board attorney has,
And
I
also
know that
think
other
there's-
counties have done that same thing,
Yeah.
so we can do that research.
I was just gonna say too, in working with other counties and asking them, like, whether they've got an Apogee or Parent Square or another type of platform, they typically write in there the district's approved communication tool. Because if you put in a vendor's name, and then in a few years, if our contract ends or something's not going with the vendor, then we have to come back and do the policy again. So typically, it is just a district's approved communication tool. And then that one, we could kind of define through policies. And then through both Ms. Troutman and Mr. Karen's department, we do have acceptable use of technology. And we do have handbooks that explain to teachers and students and staff as well. And that is another area that we could, when we revise those each year, looking at tighten that up as well. So maybe it's not so much in the policy, so to speak, so if we change different platforms, and there's obviously new social media platforms that come out, so I always kind of get leery naming exactly that stuff and something in policy, but looking at our acceptable use documents that teachers and students sign of naming there, because those change yearly.
And just one more elaboration on what Terry said, it's like putting, Facebook or Twitter. Well, I mean, with Twitter, what is it, X now? So you can put with you want to have all-encompassing terms such as, social media platforms, so there's some, a catch-all
Can you
phrase.
reference the 7,000 section in these three things to give clarity on? Is
So they would
that,
be responsible for the 7,000 section anyway. I was wondering this, and I'm just thinking out loud here, under the acceptable use agreement in which the employee signs, that they read that would seem like the point that would be most effective, which is, I assume you're looking at it as protecting kids, that part of it, right?
right,
So it seemed to me that would be the most effective way, because now you've allegedly read it and you've signed that would be the place for the strong language that you're talking about.
Could we also put it in the 7,000 section though too? That way we can,
Yeah.
because I agree with you on not naming the app. However, I do think it needs to be stated within the policy somewhere so that when an incident happens, they can't say, well, it's not in the policy, you just had it in your book, and that's not the same thing, even though we,
Using the words district.
Just use it, yeah, just making sure that we put the language within a policy.
Yeah.
So for,
I just
So
want to
that
make
we
sure
can-
I've got it. So you're wanting us to use the district-approved communication tools in in the social media policy in the 7,000. So we won't, when we meet with the 7,000, we'll make sure that gets in there.
correct,
Okay.
that way we can.
But does there need to be a reference to what we're talking about somewhere in here about that particular policy for?
I don't think so, because
Yeah.
you would
It
still,
should
like,
be
if
enough.
something happened on social media,
Yes.
you're gonna pull up both policies,
You're
right?
probably most likely
Or
going to go to
probably
social
just the
media
social
policy.
media, yeah.
The other
Certainly
one.
can, we'll look at it.
That's what I would think.
This is a list of all the do-nots. This is very, you look at all the prohibitions, they can't do this, they can't do that. That's a long list. And so this is just one of the things about discouraged from being on social media.
So, Mr. Brodsky, for clarity, where did we land on?
It's a good question.
7,000, we're going to.
No, but on this
Leave it.
particular language, are we going
Oh,
to
are we
add?
gonna leave it and then just put what we think we need in
Or
7,000?
put shall not inappropriately engage? What did y'all?
I don't wanna
Shall
put
not
in a-
inappropriately engage,
Yeah.
or this language, either one I'm fine with, but I really think there could be unintended consequences if we just make it shall not, because I'm sitting here thinking like, what if somebody teaches Sunday school and they have, you know what I'm saying, like, there's a lot of,
Right.
there's a lot of engagement with students that happens outside of
Outside.
your work duties that you may be using social media for.
And that would not fall under the inappropriate?
No, it's not.
Right, exactly. So that's why I think either shall not inappropriate engage or just, you're just generally discouraged. But I kind of like the inappropriate language better.
I think it puts some weight to, more weight to it than the discouraged.
But Mr. Blocker,
I like
are we gonna have to define inappropriate? I mean, because even though this is common sense to us, let's remember that it's not going, we don't all have the same capability to carry the same form of common sense.
No, but that's a great point. I think defining terms is always important. I mean, the Supreme Court has had a difficult time defining what indecency is, so sometimes you run that challenge, but y'all can, I mean, we can open up Blackstone's, legal dictionary and come up with the definition of inappropriate, and I'm not saying that in jest, I mean seriously, y'all can have a definition. I'm thinking through some of the cases that are out there. You have cases where teachers have been texting students, outside of school hours. There's nothing in and of itself inappropriate, but just the nature of an adult communicating with a minor after hours in the evening, even if it's about very innocuous things, that probably would make any parent uncomfortable. So you can define inappropriate, outside of professional. You can put some language that, inappropriate, plus outside of business purposes or scholastic purposes.
And they signed the contract, so they should know what inappropriate means by the time they sign the technology contract.
If you think it's okay for us to put
Yeah.
that and we can back it up legally, then I'm okay with putting that. I'm just saying that some people, what I see as inappropriate is not what the next
Right.
mom may see as inappropriate. So that's just why I say that. I want to make sure that we're
And I do know
okay by
teachers.
putting that. And I know it's just one little word, but like I said, like, how I raise my kids is not how most people raise their kids, and how I would think that would be inappropriate to have.
I like what Ms. Troutman said, though, about adding it that way, and I agree with Ms. Gilhousen. And then maybe the technology portion, when they sign, is more specific, like you said, the hard language about what is inappropriate. Because you're right, Ms. Skipper, like, I have friends who've friended students on Facebook. I would never have done that. So there is a divide about what inappropriate is, but I think the perception for most of us is that we shouldn't really be contacting our students or friending our students. Like, I think that's the general gist of the thing. And I just didn't like that we left it with just discouraged. It didn't seem like it was strong enough, I guess.
So yeah, I mean, if we're legally fine with that, we're good.
Well, I think it's fine. I would just, when you look at the definition, inappropriate is an adjective, and it essentially means it's unsuitable. So I think you want to, what's inappropriate, I think what we all are thinking of inappropriate, it's what we think on a global level is inappropriate. But then when you get down to more specific, I think you also want to have some language in there, and maybe Brenda, you could enlighten us as well, our friends from Neola, but I think you want to, really define, it has to be, we really only have, everything you all described, these examples really involve some type of professional interaction. They're really professional. These are not personal. We're not talking about baseball. I mean, it's your son, so that's, but you're not talking about like after hours, it's for a school-related purpose, or, that's appropriate, appropriate school-related purpose. And
Better
then,
to define that in the other section and leave this.
I think you could. I think as long as you define it somewhere else, because when you're taking a human resources action, employment action, you're having someone sign it. By them signing, they're acknowledging that they've read the policies, that they've gone through this, and they're responsible. They can't, ignorance is not a defense to the law. So I think as long as it's defined, those categories are defined, and really, what I'm thinking about the examples are, it doesn't have to be inappropriate in the sense that the subject matter is inappropriate, it's the time and place of interaction.
Yeah.
That's really important. If a teacher was texting one of my children after hours at night, even if it was about something very innocuous, I mean, I would find that personally inappropriate. Others may not, but we want to err more on the side of protection and kind of highlighting that. So I think something defining it more along the lines of if it's not school related or for a professional purpose, or inappropriate, and that way you kind of box it in a little bit more. Do you mind if we ask?
No, we can come up with something.
Do you see any issues with that? Do y'all?
We can do that, and the next time we're together. I'm keeping notes.
Another option is that there's a bylaw on definitions, there's a whole bunch of them we can put in there.
We put in the definition section.
That might be helpful, is having a definition section that
Okay,
defines this,
Okay.
that we can, and I bet you'll probably have that, I think I've seen that in one of y'all's other counties, the
We'll do some
definition.
research.
Okay.
And then would it be in this section? Language
change
change
it,
it, would
yeah.
it say, how are, I just need some,
I think we've decided if you guys are all okay with the shall not inappropriately
Yeah.
engage students
Okay.
in social media.
Is there
And we'll label it
consensus?
M. I'll put it in M. We'll put it in M.
All right, let's get consensus. Is that okay, Ms. Gilhoven? Ms. Clark? Ms. Hanson?
yes?
Mr. Alvaro? Okay.
And you want it in all 3 sections, correct? The same?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay.
So that it's consistent messaging.
This is my last thing. I said I had 3 things, and then I guess I'll be done, and you guys can share yours. I don't know. Page 113, administrative section.
Can you give me the number?
I'm getting to it, sorry. 1362, well, let me make sure, I'm gonna sign it. Yeah, 1362, section, I don't even know, 4C. And for us, page 113, paragraph 3, this is a section about unlawful harassment, and I'm not saying I'm with it or against it, I just would like some clarification. Compliance officers are assigned to accept complaints of unlawful harassment directly from any member of the school district community. And we actually struck out conferencing with the board attorney. And this is unlawful harassment. And we left the superintendent, but we took out the board attorney. And I just felt like when we're talking about harassment's really, really difficult, because if you have unlawful harassment at a school between 2 members, I feel like when it's an unlawful harassment, that we have a board attorney for such a thing, to at least have a discussion with our board attorney.
Ms. Hanson, where are you at on this?
I'm on
Sorry.
page 113 at the top,
But what section, because I don't have.
paragraph 3 in 1000 section.
Okay.
And it says here, compliance, designate a specific individual to conduct such a process. In the case of a formal complaint, the compliance officer will prepare after consultation with the superintendent. We struck out board attorney, and I feel like when it's something like this, dealing with harassment, which can be very, very complicated, that the board attorney should have remained in there. And that's my last.
I have no problem with adding the board attorney. Typically, if it rises to that level, we would contact our labor attorney because they have more knowledge of employment law usually, so that's why I was struck. But I have no problem adding board attorney.
So maybe
back to the-
we say
an attorney?
the superintendent and legal counsel.
Yeah, could say, how about legal counsel?
So that way, whatever attorney you need to consult with, you can.
Some sort of legal counsel. Yeah,
You still have the superintendent there?
Yeah, leave superintendent.
yes, leave superintendent.
Under letter E, you're talking, duties and responsibilities.
No, I'm in,
C.
I'm in C, which would be paragraph C3, paragraph 3, for us is page 113.
Right above Roman numeral 5, that paragraph.
Yes.
Did you see it?
Is there anything you want that change?
Yeah,
It's also in letter E, did you want that
Is
section
it
for
E as well? Let me, I haven't gone that far. Hold on.
Where do you see letter E?
Or section 4?
Page on that?
I don't, well, my version doesn't have a page numbers. E, under duties and responsibilities.
Under section 4, we don't have it.
No, section 4, we only have E and C.
We don't have E,
Duties and responsibilities.
which is why I might not have seen it.
Hold on.
Well, to be consistent, do we agree on that?
I think.
Yeah, it needs, should be consistent.
So we're gonna use the word legal counsel.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
So we have board consensus to use legal counsel added to all these sections. Was there anything else you wanted to
No,
know?
I have nothing else. Thank you.
Mr. Alvaro, do you have any other?
No, we addressed already my concerns.
Ms. Clark?
Well, I just wanted to know any clarification on 10:30.
What page out there?
Good question. So I'm looking at my notes.
Page 7.
The items that have been struck out under C after element O talks about the superintendent having to take the 4 hours of ethics. How did you get out of that, Lisa?
It's in statute that I have to take it. That's one of those where it's, I still have to take the ethics like everyone else, of course.
I
But
just needed,
I think sometimes in the process, so just to kind of paint the picture for the board, you're talking literally, I'm gonna say 1,000 pages, probably by the end. And so sometimes in that process, you're trying to cull down the wording of being too wordy for that. So some of the strikeouts are that, which is why I kind of drew the attention to the book, and maybe we'll do a better job of doing that, say, these are the final versions of that. If there is some sort of addition that needs to be added, we can certainly do that, but that's kind of why. I still have to do that under the statute. I've done mine for this year, Ms. Clark, so I'm good to go.
And I just want to say that this was so easy to navigate,
Yes.
comparing it to how we have addressed policy in the past and looking at our previous
Yeah.
documents. This was very easy to navigate, so thank you for your work on that. Is there anything else you have, Ms. Clark? I just had one thing I wanted to bring up.
no, I've got some things that don't.
So I talked with the superintendent earlier, just before the meeting, and he was gonna give me some clarity on it, but, in the support staff section, where we talk about background screenings, which, it's policy 4121.01.
What, can you say that again?
It's 4121.01.
You have another page.
I do, it's page 19.
Page 19.
The very last sentence on that page, it says the cost of the background screening related to initial employment or reemployment after a break in service will be borne by the candidate for employment. And that clause is not in the other policies where we talk about background screenings. So I just wasn't sure, is it only support staff that has to pay for their initial background screening, or is it everybody that cost is passed along to?
Everyone does their initial background screening, and I think the reason they put it in the support is because, to be honest, sometimes we have a support person that we may conclude employment on because of an evaluation, or either they just quit, and then they come back a month later. So just like drug screening and that kind of thing, if we've done it for you once, and you come back and we've already deleted your prints, then you have to pay for that.
Okay, well, the policy says it's the initial one that they have to pay for.
It is the initial one.
Okay, okay. But do we do that for teachers and administrators as well? Everybody pays for their.
Everybody pays for it. I wish we could,
Yeah, cover that cost.
especially for our support.
Yes, I was thinking the same.
Yeah, because to be honest, it's quite costly. And I
It is.
do believe transportation covers it for them.
So maybe that's just something as a board we could be cognizant of and maybe ask what the cost from our finance department would be if we were to cover that for our employees.
We
for
don't
their
have
initial,
like you
just for
said,
the initial.
parameters for that. Like a lot of companies, if you leave and come back within 6 months, you don't have to redo it. So this just says break. So if you're gone 30 days, you have to redo it.
No,
Because
we
you might do something in 30 days.
Yeah, it depends on if it's been deleted from the bank, from the,
What could happen in 30 days there?
No, I know, but she's talking about when you delete it or if it's still on file. Right?
do we have a time frame when we
We usually delete after every agenda. Because we have to pay, a lot of
We have
employees
to
don't
pay
realize,
retention
we
fee.
pay for every employee to retain yearly.
So we
their prints.
delete, that makes
So
more
we
sense
delete, so
then.
we don't have to pay the retention fee.
Okay.
I'm just talking strictly about the
Right.
initial background screening. When you
Yeah.
come for employment and, you haven't even been hired yet and you have to pay for something out of pocket.
Right.
And, yeah,
So
I
that's
don't
kind of
really have to say, it's
universally
about,
across
it's
the
about
board.
$50.
Like, we have to do that as nurses too. But I have seen companies where they're like, okay, we'll pay for this, but if you fail it, you're responsible party. But I don't know how they get their money because,
Right. We have a lot of employees.
you know what I mean? You've already purchased it, they failed it, and what are you gonna bill them? You know? So how are we gonna get their money back? But it is kind of universally like that. Because I think with that fear that, hey, what if they do fail their background screening, we'll, I don't wanna say waste a lot of money, but that there's potential to do so.
right. And for clarity, Ms. Skipper, we do pay for all drug screenings.
Right, I saw that, that's in policy that we pay for that. So anyways, that's just a thought that I had. And then the other thing I saw in instructional staff, and it's not specific wording or anything, I just had a question, who the healthcare administrator is that's responsible for background screenings. That was specifically in the instructional.
That's referencing the new clearinghouse that we all have to move to over
Okay.
the next few years.
Okay, just for instructional, it's a different
All
thing?
employees
For
will all
every-
have to
Okay.
re-fingerprint over the next couple of years.
Okay, just odd that they're healthcare.
What's gonna be, everyone will be in that, so if you're part of that, and correct me if I'm incorrect, in fact, we're going to another training on this Friday. It was supposed to be in place the first, but it's being pushed back a little bit. But let's say, like right now, if we have a nurse that's in the system, the state system, and they work for the health department, they will be in the bank, for lack of a better word, and we will be able to tie them to us so they do not then have to go pay print.
Okay.
If we have a teacher that moves from Orlando and they're in the new system, the clearinghouse, they will not, currently they have to go print. Teachers we hire from Duval, they have to come print. And this way they'll be in the clearinghouse, we tie them to us. We need to tie them to us in case they do something that we get notification.
Right.
But it prevents like people with DCF, okay, they'll be in the clearinghouse. So that way, in the long run, it will help reduce some of that cost, because if they're coming to us from another area, we'll just be able to tie them to the district and they will not have to go reprint. But
So
we
that-
will have to reprint all employees to
It
put in.
started with healthcare, so it was the Agency for Healthcare Administration, ACA, they call it, it's the clearinghouse. It started, but then other agencies have joined, so the Florida, the Department of Ed is the, I believe, the 7th agency to join this group.
Okay, so it makes it a broader umbrella.
Correct.
Correct.
For who they are storing information on, and, okay.
So technically, you wouldn't have to reprint. If you're a teacher from Duval, where your prints are on file, those prints can then become part of Clay's system. Right now, they wouldn't. You'd have to reprint because you're not assigned to us.
Right.
So this statewide process would then allow you to do that,
Well, I
which
think
is
that's
actually
fantastic.
a big improvement.
Yeah,
Yes.
huge improvement, huge improvement.
Once we get it all.
But
Every attorney.
Once we get it all worked out.
right now,
It'll be great, yeah.
they're in the, right at the height of that,
Yeah.
like how to reprint everybody.
God bless you.
Ms. Philhausen, do you have anything?
That's it for me.
So mine were just, you kind of already answered it because it was repetitive for state law and state statute. So I don't think mine were anything else other than that. Are we going over each section or are you just doing problems and then everything's good to go?
Asking for
Just the
questions
1,000s
from
right
anybody.
now.
Just 1,000s?
Yeah.
We've kind of jumped.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's not.
Well, yeah, we did
Okay.
jump around, that's why I was kind of confused. Are we, if nobody has any other questions for any of the other sections?
Can I ask one question about, to follow up on what Ms. Hanson mentioned, just for the sake of consistency on policy 1362? Down where it said board attorney. Do we want to switch to, just to be consistent throughout that whole policy, just a phrasing of board attorney to legal counsel under Ms. Gilhousen's suggestion? So if I am looking, just to give you an example where I see it, section 5B, under formal complaint procedure, there's a lot of
Could you
reference
tell
to.
me where I'm at again real quick? I
Yes,
went
ma'am.
to 3,000 for a second.
Yes, ma'am. This is 1362,
13.
and I don't have a page number, I'm sorry.
And I haven't actually gone through.
Well, there were other places
Okay,
that actually talked about the attorney was struck. So for instance, in section 1000, it said after the police report or whatever happens, board attorney was struck. I really don't think after the event, we needed to talk to a board attorney or a legal attorney once it's done. So you guys did strike that out and that made sense. I mean, once they've already counseled with an attorney, why bother?
I think that they're certified and we talk to them quite a bit.
You do, so maybe just change it to like Ms. Gilhousen said, legal
Legal counsel would be.
throughout the document.
okay, I just want to make sure that was the consensus of the board before we change it. We didn't want to do that without consensus.
Is it throughout the
To be
document?
consistent.
Mr. Alvaro, do you consent to that? Okay. Mrs. Steelhouser, do you consent to that?
Yes, I'm just not sure. There are some instances when I think it would be most appropriate for it to be the board attorney.
Yes.
Right.
So I just don't want to delete the board attorney when it should be the board attorney.
It is only within this policy just because it
So
started with.
we can
legal
assure you that
counsel.
we try to go to legal counsel here because we already pay them.
Right.
Another attorney we have to pay, so
Right.
our goal is to go to them.
Okay, so with that understanding, legal counsel is fine.
Okay.
Right, and I will say that outside counsel falls under the umbrella of board attorney.
Okay.
Their client's Clay County
Okay.
School Board.
Okay.
If there is a court case filed and represent Clay County School Board. So it would fall under the board attorney umbrella.
So we could
So there's
have
no
it as
worries
board
on
attorney? All right, is that what we
Keep it
want to
as
do?
board attorney?
I'm fine with board attorney if it's under the umbrella anyway.
Yeah, that's fine.
Save 30 minutes of going through it.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's fine.
So do you have any other issues in any other
In
section?
section 1, I only had one word in section 3000, but I don't know what section we're doing right now.
Okay, well, now, since we jumped around, that's what I'm saying. Is everybody done with 1,000?
I'm done completely with what I have
With what you
here,
have?
so sorry
Okay.
about that. I
So-
just derailed it.
Ms. Hanson, do you have anything else from any of the sections?
I really don't have a problem with this at all, but when I resigned, you guys asked me to send an email or something, right?
Right.
So if you go to 3150 under resignation, page 63 for us, in section 3000, I just wanted to, any person who wishes to resign should submit his resignation. I thought as a district, we did ask for them to send a resignation,
You
right?
could change it to must.
Huh?
You could change it to must.
I mean, I was just curious what we do. Is it a should or shall we? Because,
We ask for it, but they do not always provide it.
Yeah.
This is a 2 weeks notice, a 2 weeks advance notice, that's the should part, I mean,
right,
so.
yeah, I just wanted clarification. I thought we were already doing the shall part, so. And it
To
just says
resign,
should.
they do have to give us an actual resignation letter. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a resignation. We'd end up, if they ended up not showing back up to work, we would conclude employment on them as through abandonment.
So should that read shall submit since they have to do it? And I would imagine that that document itself gives you guys a lot of feedback as well.
It says it should be submitted at least 2 weeks in advance.
First line.
Sometimes they submit it to us
You're talking about the first line, right?
Yeah, I was looking at the first line. The second line says 2 weeks. And
So I think she wants to change the should to shall.
I was just wondering if you
the
still
very first
required
one.
that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Because I know I did one. That's the only
Yeah.
reason
We're
I
just kind of
asked.
saying they should do it. If they choose to resign,
Right,
they should do it. Otherwise, they're not resigning.
yeah.
Is
But
what that
if we require
means.
it, the policy could support that.
I'm good with either.
How are you
one.
gonna enforce?
You're okay with the should from the 2 weeks notice?
Yes. Yeah, we could change that to shall.
Yeah, I mean, because they do it anyway. That's the only reason I asked.
Do you have consensus on that, Mr. Alvaro? Ms. Clark?
Sorry, we're changing.
Skipper, are you laughing at me?
Well, because I'm just trying to figure out how you're gonna enforce that when they're leaving anyway.
Right, but they do require it, so.
Okay.
I don't know how they get it, but.
Ms. Clark?
I guess we're going with shall.
I think it kind of goes with the word if they wish
Yeah.
to resign,
Yeah.
then they should do that.
You have
Otherwise, they're
board
not resigning.
consensus. You have board consensus to change it.
Okay.
Any other? Mr. Alvaro, do you have any other issues with any sections?
In the 3150, the resignation, this line was struck out. An employee who returns to employment after resigning shall be entitled to unused sick leave credit accrued prior to the time of her resignation. That was struck out.
Okay.
It's anywhere in the policy.
Where are you at? Sorry,
3150,
3150?
under the resignation, the first paragraph.
And you want to know why that was struck out?
Yes.
He wants to know why that section was struck out.
Which, can you read that again for Ms. Troutman?
I have it, Mr. Superintendent. The reason, that is all handled on their exit, and they get it after a certain amount of time if they come back, and they elect to they check on their exit interview, whether they wish to keep their leave on the books, or whether they wish to be paid out. So that is all handled on their exit interview, and then it's only good for a certain amount of time. There's a time limit on it. We don't hold, even if they elect to hold it, we don't hold it forever if they return.
Any other questions? Do you have any other, in any other section? Ms. Clark, any other issues with any other section?
No, I just want to say thank you to the district and Neola for putting in so much effort because it was a lot.
Ms. Gilhousen?
We'll see you again next month.
So before, is it okay that we did this and we only addressed the issues and we're good with everything else? Is that easy for you?
That's what you should.
Okay, so I have a question that I want to consult the board on, because I was thinking, so we have, while Neil is here, because if we decide to change it, I've been to a couple of trainings, and the message has been pretty consistent with each organization, from FSBA to SBAE to the Liberty Institution. We decided to take out Robert's Rules of Order as not adopting them in our first section. And I think that it would be a good idea to put that back in as Robert's Rules for consistency and something that we can reference and go back on. I know none of us are, well, I shouldn't speak for everybody. I know I'm not the best at Robert's Rules. I try to implement them because I think it makes our meetings run effectively and efficiently. But they had a wide variety of reasons as to why it would be a good idea. Because when you're talking about things that sometimes may be controversial or things may happen, when we rely on Robert's rules, it makes it to where there's less drama, if you will, and more consistent. Where feelings don't get hurt, where your meetings are gonna run more smoothly, where if there's ever a call to question, but we can always reference it. So I just personally feel that we should implement that, and maybe that's something that we can give consensus on. If we want to do that, they can change that so that when we get all of this back in front of us, it's already done. If not, that's up to you guys, but I personally believe that we should adopt that, put that back in.
So do you want people to
Yeah,
research and think about it and then come back to our next meeting and bring the topic?
Well, we can do that, or if you're ready to vote, we can do it, or, well.
I am ready to
we can
vote.
sit-
I read the Robert's rules and I think it brings consistency.
Yeah, it's a golden standard for hundreds of years.
That's bylaw 0161.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't remember the number. I was gonna pull it all back out, but I was like, well, you guys are coming today, I'll just ask about it.
And Madam Chair, we wouldn't actually vote, you would just ask for
That's what I
consensus.
meant, I didn't, that's why I didn't mean to.
That's one of-
I meant, yeah.
I'm fine with that. I'll just, for background, why we didn't formally adopt them in years past. We had, I don't remember if it was legal advice or if it was FSBA training where they warned us that if you adopt Robert's rules as your formal way of operating and then you break the rules, you're then in violation of your own policy at a public meeting, and you could have legal issues with that.
Absolutely, so I've seen that scenario before, which y'all, because there are times where Robert's Rules of Order is maybe cumbersome or non-appropriate, you can simply, on motion, temporarily suspend Robert's Rules for that particular issue, then bring it back, but that is real and that does happen. But 95% of that's applicable. You will run into some issues where it's cumbersome, where it makes it difficult. That would simply be a motion to temporarily suspend that rule.
So I guess my question then would be, Mr. Blocker, could you and your staff ensure that if we need to suspend Robert's rules, you'll signify the board that that needs to happen?
Absolutely.
I just don't want us to get in danger of.
Absolutely, and maybe we can put some verbiage in there that says, you know, on times of necessity, the board can temporarily, I mean, that goes without saying, y'all can always temporarily suspend a board rule.
But in the process of a meeting, if the situation arises, can you signal the
Yes,
board
ma'am.
that we
Yes,
need
ma'am.
to?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Does that make sense to everyone?
Right, and we can always add rules, there's a lot of flexibility with Robert's rules, but it's still very consistent, if that makes sense. So that's why I say that, but I agree with that, if Mr. Walker would do that, because I know that there'll be times where I'll struggle, I'm not gonna lie. Ms. Clark, do you have consensus on that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So can we have board consensus that we want to change it back to that and maybe add the verbiage that,
We'll try.
yeah, we'll try. That board, what is it, could be subject to temporary suspend? What is it?
Yes, ma'am. Robert's rules can be temporarily suspended upon a motion and a second
Okay.
approval.
Temporarily suspended with the first and second.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it's 0161, just so everyone knows, and we struck the option, we're going to return the option and strike the other sentence.
Yes, ma'am. And to elaborate on that as an example, Robert's rules, they're generally, you only have, the chair recognizes one person you speak, and that's the conclusion of your remarks. Obviously, there are times where you want to come back because there might be a healthy discussion, there might be a public comment. So, but in the normal course of a board meeting, it would be, you would speak, that would be the conclusion that would go around. So you could suspend it for the purposes of discussion. You know, it would be, you know, a move to suspend Robert's rules for purposes of discussion dialogue on this agenda item. You'd be a second. You suspend it, you know, then you reinstate it, kind of allow. If you want to have more of a free-flowing discussion in a board meeting, which, you know, understandably are probably not as frequent as, but you could have a policy issue, a lot of public engagement where you want to kind of adjust it.
And I'll just say, past practice, kind of the habit we're in is that is how we discuss things. It's a lot of back and forth. So that's my concern. If we change it, everybody needs to understand what that means. And so you can't just address another board member without it being your turn.
Well, that's why I have been trying to be consistent since I've been board chair to directly say Ms. Hanson, Mr. Alvaro, and have the board speak first and then get outside input, or have everyone speak and then have additional discussion if need be. But I have personally tried to do that because I think that our meetings, one, everybody's listening at that point, and then two, we're running effectively and efficiently at that point.
But that's fine with me. I just want to make sure we all understand.
Alrighty.
I can circulate with you all kind of like, and I think I've seen it, little cheat sheets, y'all can all have it, some of the kind of the key, top 10, I wouldn't burden y'all with reading all of Robert's rules, it's quite a tome, but we can give y'all, some additional material to kind of review in preparation.
And I have some that, we had parliamentary individuals who came for training. I can have maybe Ms. Bonnie can run some copies off for everybody, little cheat sheets.
Well, and I think since we've all given consensus for master board training, it might be most appropriate that we do maybe a Robert's Rules refresher.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. There is a lady, her name's Barbara Proctor. She does specifically, she is a parliamentarian, and she specifically does this. She can do it via Zoom, or she can come here. I know her Zoom cost, I think she quoted was like $150 to hold me to that, where we can all sit in a board meeting and watch her on the screen, or we can have her come in. She's very good. I've heard her speak like 2 or 3 times now. And I spoke to her, I got her information, and she's willing to come if we need to. So I think that would be a great idea.
Just because, we've been through this training before, and we talk about board norms and expectations. So if Robert's Rules is our new norm, I think that would be
And she also, she teaches it in such a way that I don't think,
it's not as intimidating.
Right, it's not as intimidating. She also teaches, and when I say more than what we should, it's not like that, because that's overwhelming. Robert's Rules can be overwhelming. But she teaches us things that we may not have known from other trainings and stuff. So anyways, I think it's really good. I have her information. We can, if that's what we want to do, we can reach out to her and find out how much in-person is, or if you guys want to just do Zoom, whatever.
I also went to FSBA training, the Chairmanship Academy, and I gave someone at the last school board meeting an excellent cheat sheet. And it was just like, if this happens, the chair looks over, and this is what you say. And it is somewhere, and we'll get a copy maybe at the school board.
Ms. Bonnie's the custodian.
It was 2 sheets, and one was given to you.
Oh, James, okay, we'll find it.
Wherever it is, there's one on cardstock, so that could be on cardstock, or maybe even laminated for the board so that we could turn it over. The second sheet doesn't need to be laminated, but there's an excellent FSBA sheet that I gave to somewhere. We'll get it, we'll get it. But I agree with you about, I have been in sessions with Ms. Proctor, and she's so, I don't mean this in a bad way, dry, clear cut, like she doesn't get ruffled about Robert's Rules at all. She's just like, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the way it is. So it really simplifies it I felt better about it after listening to her, so I think it's a great idea.
There is a book for Robert's Rules that's rather inexpensive, but it is 651 pages. I was looking at it for me, thinking I want to get schooled up, and I don't know you. But if you want it.
You're having insomnia.
All right, well, so I think that's it for Neola. Are you guys okay?
I just want to mention one thing. As we have worked these last 6 months, the legislature has made some changes, and some of them have been with bylaws. So I'll talk to the staff, and we'll need to bring forward to you a few new bylaws, public participation. I'm sure you'd like to see that. And, but there's not 10, but there are some we want to get, so we get your section cleaned and ready.
Sounds good.
And also the definitions, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I've got a list of those, I'll go over them with Kelly and I'll
Perfect.
make sure you're aware of
Perfect.
that.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I don't know if people are laughing at me about this or not, but, so as a teacher, I really want to lay my eyes on the student section. I talk a lot to parents, I talk a lot to teachers, and I don't want to talk about something I've not laid my eyes on. I'm not saying I need like to make changes or copies, or, I just need to wrap my head around what's coming so that I am prepared for constituents. I have, my goal by the end of the year is to visit every school, and I sit in the media center to get feedback, and I just have never looked at it. I can look at another county, but that doesn't really mean a lot for us.
They're at the cleaners right now, the proposed policies. I expect them to be to Kelly by February 3rd. She will get them copied and be getting them to you.
So at the cleaners, what does that mean?
That means our production department goes through them, and just like you have now, you have both, you'll, just exactly, you'll receive a book.
In the red line version, or we haven't done that yet?
But we have not finished.
Okay.
It's not completely
It's
finished.
just the, but,
By the 3rd, it will be to Kelly.
so we will get,
Yes, ma'am.
Right after.
both copies again?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but just as a reminder, we're referencing this copy, you can see the confusion. What page are you on? What document are you looking at?
Pages you
We're looking at the completed
Yes.
version, right? So I think that it's important to recognize that. This way we can say page 68, and everybody can go to page 68.
Well,
Bring your notes and your.
I cut out the red line pages and put them in, glued them on. I'm a teacher, so the sections that are redlined are on their numbers. So the numbers will always be straight with me. I just wanted to lay my eyes on them and understand what changes we made and what I might think of that. That's
We'll make
all.
sure you have them plenty
Okay.
Yes.
in this 2 weeks.
And we'll courier them out or whatever we need to do to get them to you. Like as soon as I get the word from Annette, Bonnie and I sit down, we turn around, we get them out.
Because, state law mentions stakeholders thousands of times, right? And the only way I can meet at a school with stakeholders and talk about something is if I actually have some knowledge of that something. So kind of puts you in a predicament. Ms. Skipper and I, Ms. Clark came to one before. We have done forums to get parent feedback, teacher feedback, and I wouldn't be able to do any of that if I wasn't even sure what I was talking about, so.
So yeah, I
Okay.
spoke with production yesterday and they said that I'd have them by February 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Alderman.
Oh, I'll be interested also in reading the students' policy. Yes,
Excellent.
definitely. Because I have kids in the school system too.
All righty, well, thank you. I appreciate you guys greatly. If you don't need anything else from us, we're good? Okay. And, Mr. Broski.
So I'm going to review the agenda quickly. We do have a lengthy safety and security meeting right after this for that, so I'll breeze through this very quickly. I think there's only 1 or 2 items that the board will recognize as different than the normal things that happen. So we need the recognition of all state music people. We're also going to celebrate our Teacher of the Year, Amanda Watson, and Misty Massey, our School-Related Employee of the Year. Our 3 new Purple Star schools, as well as our quarterly report, under the law, Mr. Boyne comes forward and says, here are the findings. The details of those findings are going to be released to you in the meeting right after this. So that's more of a general statement. It's also Career and Technical Education Month, so there'll be a presentation from our CTE department talking about Career and Tech Ed. Within the discussion agenda, there's the public hearing for the Policies and Procedures Manual for ESE services. So this was 2 months ago that was brought to you for advertisement. Now the final part of that is the public hearing related to that document. Then the first item is the minutes, and of course those were given to you ahead of time. The employee work calendar. Kind of interesting here for the employee work calendar. For 2 years, there's been confusion because people will Google a calendar and not find the calendar. So we're looking for creatively, how do we stop that from happening? So you notice the big yellow draft on the document, so when they go to an old Google search, they'll hopefully see the yellow draft piece, and that'll alert to them to go to the website. The only accurate information is the information on the website. You can't go to a previous Google search from 6 months ago and then see a calendar and then go by that calendar. So that was our creative way of dealing with that issue. If constituents were concerned about it, we're gonna stamp it with a big yellow draft. So
Thank you for that.
everything will say big yellow draft until it's actually on our website. The only accurate place for accurate information is the district website, not a Google search that's out there. And hopefully they're gonna see the big yellow draft and say, well, maybe this is not the right calendar. And then they'll go to the website and figure out the right calendar.
Maybe. I have a question about that though.
Yes, ma'am.
And maybe you guys can shed some light onto this. As a mom, as a board member, as all the things, why do we have half days in the middle of the week?
Like on Wednesdays, is that what you're talking about?
Elementary.
Like professional development days, aren't they?
Are you talking about elementary?
Elementary.
Right.
I think those dates are strategically.
They are strategic.
I
So-
heard that, but I needed you to confirm this.
So there's a couple factors. Some of them occur, like after Halloween, like on Halloween, because we
Those
know.
are self-explanatory.
The other ones, because there is, when they have been historically on a Monday or a Friday, the absentee rate is so high that it almost is, it decreases our attendance rates for our students. And so at least a half day is better than no time at all. And sometimes you have a high amount of call-outs, even though we have procedures in place to reduce that. You have call-outs from staff, people take off, students are gone. So it's really just becomes lost instructional hours. So administrators have asked, if we have it in the middle of the week, then we can schedule in the afternoon, especially for like elementary, which just really is just elementary, the parent conferences and things like that. And so they're more likely to attend a parent conference on a Wednesday afternoon than a Friday
I
afternoon.
would add that decision is made by a whole group of people. There's a whole
Yes,
calendar
right.
committee, and
Yeah.
I think which board members on
This
the.
one, right?
And actually, no.
Right, so this-
You have one this week. You wanna hear my first suggestion?
Calendar's a whole thing. It's not, I mean, there's actually color coded, how many days, what, like, it's a.
I understand. I was
It's a
just
thing.
saying.
That's a great question, and we've been asked that before, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, and I had a parent reach out and was like, listen, if you had it like on a Friday or a Monday, like you were suggesting, I could take my vacation time
Yeah.
and utilize it or flex or whatever, but because you've put it in the middle of the week, like we're a working two household, I'm trying to figure this out, and I totally get it, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just, then it sparked curiosity for
Yeah.
myself, like, why are we doing this? So,
Yes.
As a teacher, I was very grateful we went to half days on Halloween.
Yes.
And
That half day on Halloween was
We need
genius.
a half day,
Yeah,
the day
hey.
after Halloween, but everybody come in late.
Sugar.
yes,
Character parade.
Come in at
Don't have
11
days.
and stay till 2:30.
there you go.
Okay, we're on personnel consent agenda, just the normal activities there. Elementary out of state travel. Then Black History Month proclamation. Career Tech Ed Month proclamation. Then there's the CTE CAPE strategic plan. Every district has to provide a plan to the state. That is our district's plan. Next is kind of interesting. The contract is not, has been recently added there. We did get $1.2 million from the legislature in order to have a advanced manufacturing program. We're looking to expand that to potentially Orange Park High School and Oakleaf High School. This is more or less the contract to buy the curriculum and the equipment necessary in order to do that. So it's a start of a new program. Pasco County in particular has an up and going program. I know that we're sending people down there to take a look at their program. But CTE does a marvelous job, and this is an expansion of that, and this is what the contract is for, in order to do that.
And it's for a very high in demand career, so.
One of the challenges with CTE is sometimes people want a program, because they like the program, but the program has to match the need of the community, and that's usually determined through need assessments through folks like partners like Jackson USA, as well as our local chamber. You can't create a program in which the demand for jobs is not there, right? Even if you like the program and think it's interesting, there's ties to that, and Alice and Kelly are top-notch, and our CTE programs are recognized across the state as being top-notch.
Mr. Rossi, did I miss it? Did you say what schools you're looking at for the?
Oak Leaf and Orange Park.
Oak Leaf and Orange Park. Because I know there are large manufacturers in Green Cove in the industrial parts of the city there. Is this something we could eventually expand, or would it only remain at 2 schools?
Potentially.
I think potentially expand. I think if the board would like, I could send 2 informational videos that are short to you related to both the program as well as some more information about it. I see Alice lurking. Alice, would you like to add anything to that?
So we are definitely starting with Orange Park High School because they have a current engineering program and a robotics program. Both have been there for quite a while and are great programs. But this advanced manufacturing is going to take both of those to the next level. So that was just kind of a logical place to start with it with our appropriations. We've invited Oak Leaf High School and actually Houston Heights High School to go see the program in action with us. So we're going to get 2 schools off the ground with our legislative appropriations, and then we do feel like it'll be something that we can get funds for further down the line. It's going to take some space at schools. So you did mention Clay High. That was something we kind of considered after we got Orange Park off on the list, but right now there's no space at Clay High unless we're going to close something. So we're going to start there, see about getting them started where we know we have some space and some great possibilities, with the idea of I can't see us not expanding it at other places as well. So we have a great partnership with St. John's River State College. So Ridgeview is also another logical place because they run some of the same programs at the collegiate level. We've actually had some kids who've been going over to St. John's and doing some dual enrollment after school to get a taste of that program there. So that's awesome.
That's awesome.
How easy is it to get instruction staff for this program?
So that's another reason why we're starting Orange Park High School, because we already got some instructors there who are certified in the content for either engineering or technology education. We also have a robotics teacher at Oak Leaf High School who could be a possibility, and we've got a gentleman at Keystone who's doing robotics as an after-school club. So we've also started what we logically had some personnel that had some interest in it, so that we weren't introducing something and didn't have a possible teacher, which is, if you don't have a good teacher, the program's never going to take off. So.
Thank you.
Any questions? Good. Okay, next is the ESY, the student calendar for exceptional student education for the summer. After that is the adoption, the approval to advertise the adoption for K-5 ELA, K-4 math, and K-9-12 personal finance. This is a reminder to use the state bid list for any of those, are all state adoptable materials. There's choices that IT looks at to make sure they're compatible in that way. Our specialists look at it, our teacher looks at it, then all the teachers, in essence, put their input into it to make that a bit available. I think April will be the month that it would come up for final. This is like the 5th step on like a 7-step process. Then you have K-12 academic services, out-of-state travel. Then there's proposed allocation changes. Then our financial documents, our monthly financial reports, our budget amendments, our deletion of certain item report, our bid awards. Then you have another proportionate share mitigation with BMHB Ventures for $1.5 million, asking for seats within our schools in which we don't have enough. So it looks like 44 elementary students and 27 high school students. You may want to look back. That might be of interest to you. That's followed by our educational facility plan. Then it's followed by a whole slew of ops Work, Tynes Elementary HVAC, the Rydon Elementary Classroom Edition. That's followed by substantial completion for Clay High School's track. It's beautiful out there. Keystone Heights concession stand, long time coming. They'll be so happy. Approval and certification for our fish report, pre-qualification of contractors, and security lighting at Keystone Heights Junior High School. So that completes the agenda, and I just want to remind everybody that immediately following, we're going next door for safety and security meeting. Thank you.
And there's no question from the audience.
No further comments. Thank you so much. Appreciate the good conversation and everybody being prepared. I thank Neola. They really are, great folks with a lot of knowledge across the whole state. So when you look at this project, this is probably the biggest project ever, if I could be so bold, ever tried in Clay County. At least 36 years, right? So this is huge. So I appreciate the cooperation, realizing that there's a lot of things we have to move forward. There's always going to be a want to revise something after all of that. That's totally normal. We're trying to push forward a massive amount at one time. So if there needs to be a policy revision after this is all done, we can certainly do that, right? So that's the thing.
I know we had this thing, we could talk about the board business first, but
Yeah, I'm just gonna,
I had mentioned to the chair.
and then we'll do.
Okay, I thought we were picking up and leaving.
No, we're gonna still have a discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any comments?
No, ma'am.
All right, and now we'll do board members, and then normally we do it at the beginning, and I wanna apologize to everybody for being late. Being a mom is very interesting some mornings, and so we'll just leave it at that. But we'll go ahead with, anything you guys wanna talk about, anything you guys wanna share, but, I'll do it in order, and we'll also just do ending comments as well. So, Ms. Hanson, I'll let you go first.
It was just like, kind of like board business. I was wondering where the status is of the committee for internal audit, like when we were going to decide who was gonna sit on that committee. And our school board calendar is always accurate up until October, and I don't know the legal ramifications as to why we always do December last minute and try to figure out moving up the workshop, moving up 2 workshops in December so we can have an early school board meeting. But honestly, I mean, this is kind of selfish. I never want to miss a meeting, right? And sometimes I have to plan things ahead of time. I missed a meeting in December and I was very distraught about it. So I know that our calendar is accurate. I have it here, all of our meetings. But when we get to December, and January, we have a meeting on January 1st on the website. And I know that this is our traditional problem. Is there a way we can have a discussion about it, whether we can set it permanently or not? But getting our dates kind of squared away prior to November would be, I think, super helpful for everybody. Yeah.
So do you want us to give you a proposed calendar based on the information that's known now?
The SSB, so right now, and I've talked to you about this before, but
we can do that.
FSBA, we have a meeting on December 4th, which is during that week, that I will be attending that. There's also, we have not finalized, of course, it's a weird time, right? November, December, and January. I know that but it would, beneficial for me especially if I wanted to maybe go somewhere Thanksgiving. I don't want to miss a meeting ever again. And so if we could finalize a little bit November, December, maybe like
How about we just do one now for the proposal for it, realizing that the board has to vote in November on that, but it's the same folks are going to be here, so it's
That's perfect.
It's kind of like, and that will give everybody enough head start. You good with that, Miss Bonnie?
Sure.
Okay.
And then to answer your first question, we actually talked about it at the last workshop that we were going to pick today. So for our board representative for the audit committee, the internal audit committee, not the one that the chair's on. So does anybody have any recommendations, any suggestions on who they want for the internal audit?
Personally, they need a little more time.
Ms. Clark?
I've been through enough audits, I'd be happy to jump in and offer my chance to be on it, but if we need more time.
I think we're talking about the package of candidates that we were given.
No,
Oh.
we're talking about the board representative. the
Oh,
board
oh,
member.
okay, sorry, yes, we can have that discussion. I thought you were wanting us to go ahead and nominate who we wanted to put.
No, no,
on.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
No, I think you could just do that privately with Miss Bonnie, correct? We don't have to, you get to pick that.
We don't need to bring that to the.
No, 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 no.
Okay.
You get to pick that because that's your it's like the Hassett sales tax.
Yeah.
You can pick who you want to for that.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, I would like to sit on that committee. From the time that I learned about the law, I have been fully invested. I mean, really, really invested in making sure that we do the right thing. I've learned a lot about it. I took some heat over it, and I would honestly, all I have right now is the Value Adjustment Board. So it would mean a lot to me if my fellow board members would allow me to sit there. And I promise you, I will not be lazy about this.
Mr. Alvaro,
Requirement,
who would you like to?
I'm fine with her sitting on the committee.
Ms. Gilhausen, do you know?
That's fine if Ms. Hanson wants to do it.
Ms. Hanson?
Thank you.
You will be the school board representative for the internal audit.
It means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
So Ms. Bonnie, we have that, you have that? We'll add that, her to that, okay. And then, do you have anything else?
Just the calendar. Will we
Yep,
good?
got that down.
Right, okay. Mr. Alvaro?
I just want to thank you for appointing me to the Stake Talking Children. Also, thank you for putting me in the agenda so they can come and explain everybody what they do. And thank the superintendent for offering them the opportunity to explain from the school principals and explain them so they can help those children go through the system and get an education. Thank you for that.
Well,
Anything else? Ms. Gilhausen?
Nothing from me.
Ms. Clark?
No.
I have a few things real quick, before we take off. First of all, I want to say, because I didn't get to say it this morning when Take Stock in Children came, if any of you have committees and you want people to come in and speak and give us a quick update, I think it was a great idea that they did that. Clay Education Foundation, anybody who wants to do that, put 10, 15 minutes, like, hey, that way we as a board, even though we are the liaison for these groups, I think it's still a good idea for them to, one, get in front of the public, and then two, just get in front of us and gives us an opportunity to maybe ask questions that we may not even think about, to have you ask or whatever. So I think that that's a great idea. I also wanted to say that I've been given a lot of thought about how we as a board can communicate, because I hear that communication is somewhat of an issue, and I've tried to wrap my head around some ideas, and I've talked to some people, and I think I've come to the conclusion, if you guys are wanting to do this, willing to do this with me, Miss Dennis is probably gonna hurt me for this one, but doing a board newsletter, whether we do it monthly, whether we do it quarterly, if you have nothing to update your constituents on and you just want to throw a quote out there, that's fine too. Like, whatever you want to put on this little flyer and have your message get out to parents, to teachers, to the community, where I know we use, in certain schools right now, we use Peachjar, but we'll eventually use our system, where it will be streamlined to them and sent out like in a, how they send the email out to alert, whatever. Our flyer could go out to every parent, to every teacher, principal, whatever, and it's whatever you guys want to share. Hey, this is what we're working on. If we want to do a collective board message, this is what we're working on. this is what we're doing. If you guys have issues with it, this is the time to speak essentially, because there's so many times where I've heard teachers or parents say, I didn't even know you guys were moving kids from 6th grade to the junior high. I would have loved to support you on that, or I had an objection to that, or whatever the case may be. We could say, hey, this is what your board is actively working on. This is the decisions that are upcoming and what we're gonna make. You know, it could be as simple as just wishing everyone a Merry Christmas, like whatever you guys wanna do. And if you wanna do it quarterly, or if you wanna do it monthly, it's up to you guys, but I wanted to see if you would join in with me on this.
I think it's best, whatever we do it collectively, just because that's how we govern. We
Yes.
govern as one body, so I don't think it would look good if each board member had a blurb. I think we need one collective message. And then my other suggestion would be, let's do it in collaboration with our attorneys.
Yep, no, 100%. I wouldn't wanna be like going rogue or anything.
But I think just, if you wanna do a monthly update on what the board is gonna be talking about at our next board meeting. Just so that, because I know right now you have to go look for our agenda. You don't necessarily know what the board is gonna be talking about unless you're interested enough to go find the agenda. So if you wanna do a monthly newsletter to the schools, the parents, whatever, that, this is what's coming up at our next board meeting.
I agree with Ms. Hausen, Ms. Gilhausen, collectively.
Right.
So when we had forums, everyone was invited, all the school board members were invited to attend. So collectively, I think it's really important, because oftentimes when I think about this board, I smile. Like, I have friends across the state, and it's not like this. Like, we have one of the nicest boards. It's always an honor and a pleasure to sit here with you guys. Honestly, so I think it's real important that this highly effective board maybe gets the word out that we're highly effective, and I think that's important.
Yeah, because I don't think people realize the change that's happening is direct and does affect them. So I think that this would be a good idea. Sorry, I have notes over here that I wanted to.
Can we start quarterly, because monthly seems like it might be a lot at first?
Yeah. No, that's why I said, whatever you guys wanted to do.
But it would depend on what message you're wanting to put out there. That's why I suggested monthly, because we meet monthly. So you could start with, what are you gonna build your newsletter on? Well, really, all we should be talking about is what we are doing as a board. And the only things we do together as a board are the things we do in a public meeting. So that's why, that's kind of where my train of thought went. That's probably the safest place to start.
Well, could it have something like, if I hold office hours, right now I'm visiting every school, but if I go back to office hours, could it have that in it as well?
That's what I would utilize this for, is whatever message you wanted to get out. And that's why I said we could do like a collective board message, and then I don't know, put a bubble over here, Michelle Hansen's office hours for this quarter or this month or whatever. Mr. Alvaro's town halls, you know what I mean? Or if we decide to do town halls together, whatever. I'm just trying to say that we have a collective maybe message together, and then we put whatever information.
Well, if you're open to suggestions, I used to be the yearbook and school newspaper teacher.
I am
You might
totally
find a
open.
good format
I'm
for
just
us.
trying to think for us collectively, how can we have that positive message be sent out, that hey, we're not book banners, we're not this, we're not that, we're, this is who we are, and this is what we've done, and this has been the repercussions of what we've done. We now have X, Y, and Z, or whatever, that we're sending that positive message. That would be my suggestion.
So I don't think it's a good place to lay out policy opinion on items, more like advertising the events and the office hours and that kind of stuff, because it would be forecasting your thought on a potential vote up ahead. It's not.
Well, that's why we do it through legal, and I don't think that would be the intent. I think it would just
I
be
just want to
like,
make sure we
hey, we
realize
have
it's more advertising of
student
things that are
section
happening.
of whatever. I mean, it would totally be legal.
There's other avenues for us to talk politically or about things like, it doesn't need to be in a newspaper. A news article.
Mr. Fox. Oh, yeah, thank you, sorry. I'm clear. I was just gonna say, one of the ways we could maybe do it is, just, if y'all do it quarterly, we could, obviously, we probably want, some of the staff that works on that to assist y'all, because they probably understand, kind of how to put it together a little bit.
They have
but-
Canva as well.
Correct, yes, ma'am, but we can just do a brief legal review and make sure, it's not, so it's focused on the accomplishments that y'all want to highlight, and maybe not, referencing a specific, because y'all's authority is right when y'all speak together collectively as a board. This would be more to y'all to highlight the work that y'all are doing in the community. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah, that was like my intent, but the only thing I wanted to talk about, like upcoming town halls is what I meant, like this is the subject we're covering. That's what I was meaning as far as like what we plan on doing in the,
Absolutely.
should you be present for this if you wanted to have an input on it, is what I was kind of referring to. But yeah, like if we go to a ribbon cutting for the new buildings, hey,
A picture.
and this is what we've done the last couple of months or whatever, you know what I mean? Just showing that, because it's not always advertised on our Facebook page. Sometimes it is, and then sometimes because of parents having to follow their school's Facebook page, their athlete's Facebook, or their kids' club page, and it's just so much it gets lost in translation and everything. So that was my idea, so that people know.
Highlight the accomplishments.
Right, that's been going on, and letting them know, hey, we are present, we are here if you need us.
I'm sorry, lawyers should not speak this much in meetings, but, a great highlight might be after y'all voted on something like y'all have created with the district, by far the best media policy with books. The fact that other districts reach out, I know there's some criticism, one or two people in the public, but y'all actually have put, it's shocking, right? But y'all actually have created a great policy, right, with staff. So that's something y'all can highlight. And we have, calls from other attorneys and other, just the other day, say, hey, we want to understand y'all recess. Other boards are struggling, and y'all have really crafted a great policy. So after y'all voted, that's something y'all can highlight, like, look at this great policy, because there's a lot of misinformation on Thursday nights at y'all's board meeting that's kind of brought it during public comment. So I think that's an opportunity for you guys to really highlight the positive that y'all have done, and really, it's a very measured process. So it really would be the prior, like if we have an upcoming agenda item, that would really be where you want to be more restrained. But after y'all voted on it, y'all can talk about those accomplishments. And does that make sense? Is that?
No, yeah, 100%. That was kind of my intent, but
I think it'd be a great place to celebrate some accomplishments, like, just for example, in this last agenda where we're expanding our career and tech ed opportunities, and we could use that as an opportunity to talk about how we as a board support our career and tech ed department and all that they do for kids.
Would it be electronic? I mean, that's really the best way.
yeah, that's what I was saying. It would go out
Because
through.
nobody prints papers or.
No, it would go. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
To their emails and to their Facebook page or their little pages and stuff like that, so that we would pop up and they could view it like a flyer.
So Apogee
Do you
can
want to
handle
wait to
something.
roll this, excuse me, do you want to wait to roll this out until we have Apogee running?
We have it running.
We have the website and the app running. So we're also, right now we're transitioning from SMORE, which is our newsletter platform, to Aptogee's Engage newsletter platform. So once we have that, you would be able to even have on your school board page, it would be a way that you could put your archive of past newsletters as well, and then it lets people from the community even subscribe. So right now we have it where we use our SIS to reach parents, but then when we get Engage added to that, people even from the community could go on to that page and subscribe, and it would have a way to archive your newsletters as well.
So when does that go into effect?
I'm looking at Ethan because we're about to be rolling out some of the other.
Geez, we start working on that next this week.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're starting pulling over all the SIS information for rooms and stuff this week.
So we could probably create one for this quarter or whatever, collaborate, Mr. Walker, would it be inappropriate how would we do this if we had went home, thought about what we really wanted to highlight? Could we send it in a group email, or should it be sent to Bonnie and then I'm just trying to make it convenient for board members so that they're not having to come in, we're not having to, it's not wasting time, but you know what I mean, like spending too much time on this, where they can think about what they wanted to highlight, email it in, and then we put it together.
Yes, it's completely up to you all working with the superintendent. One of the things, what I've seen in a prior lifetime is we would have a monthly meeting with the key staff member, whoever was responsible for that. And that could be whoever the superintendent designates. And, whatever we want to provide that month was provided. Usually it was, visiting different places or doing different policy things or highlighting different, things after the fact. So that would be provided. Some people would just put an important quote or a Christmas message or whatever the holiday was. Then staff would have time to collect that, then kind of generate a version for review. But all would be done individually with the board member and the staff member that the superintendent would designate as kind of the point of contact to collect that information. Then, version, because y'all do quarterly, that allows more time. You're kind of in a 90-day cycle. So there could be, hey, what would y'all like to be in this quarter's, newsletter and
Well, that's what I'm saying, if they sent that in, let's just say, Ms. Gilhausen wants to do CTE, Ms. Hanson wants to do the police department, whatever it is, they send it in, then we collectively come up with a statement, and then we can send that statement back out to the board members for approval, like, hey, this is what we've come up with, because four board members want to talk about this, or whatever, get approval, and then send that to the staff who does it.
I just have experience in this kind of thing. So honestly, it's really simplified. If you have a little article, something you want to say, right, and you submit it somewhere, it's digital, they cut and paste it, put it onto a document, probably Canva, because it's very easy
Right, no,
to
I
use.
understand that, but I'm talking about getting the information from us.
Yeah, we would send it to that staff member.
Yeah, I would probably designate to say this, Bonnie, if I'm going to designate you as the point of contact.
That's what I'm trying to
That's
figure
normal.
out.
So I would individually send the email of what it is you would like to highlight to Ms. Bonnie.
Okay.
Ms. Bonnie will be working with Terry Dennis, who will help create that. Sometimes it's a matter of, if you ever look at this, sometimes it's a space issue and you got to cut down the number of words in this article in order to make the, so there's some give and play there.
So then can you and I collaborate, and then before we put the flyer out, we can send it to the board members for approval?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am. At one point, we can talk more about this when you have time. You might have that, you have each board member highlighting something that's similar. So as an example, I recall, I think it was a 75th anniversary or 85th anniversary of the D-Day landings. I think I have that timeline right. So one board member had physically gone and visited the site of the battlefield. They had pictures from that, but other members want to commemorate it as well because they had a father or a grandfather that served there. So the content may be similar, but each board member would have their own version of I'm just using that as an example. Same with the holiday message. Y'all may each have a Christmas themed or holiday themed New Year's related message that you want to put out. It doesn't necessarily have to cancel each other out if, Mrs. Hanson, Ms. Gilhouse, and Mrs. Gilhouse are doing a Christmas, but it would be unique to each of y'all. So y'all could sometimes touch on similar themes.
So instead of one newsletter with one voice, it would be each school board member has their own blurb, is that what
It could be.
It could be.
If we wanted to do that,
If
it's
you
an
wanted to.
option, but we could do a collective one, and then, if it's a special occasion and you're like, hey, I want to actually elaborate on this, then there would be room to do that. My point is I want us as a board to get our message out and our work and what we support and what we've been doing. And then, like I said, collectively together, or if he said they want to throw out whatever. So but my concern was how were we going to do it, which now we've solved that issue. And then Ms. Dennis, if you'll just collaborate with me, and then we'll send it all out. Sound good? Is that a great idea? Okay, great.
So
All right.
if you'll just let us know when you want.
We'll start thinking about it, and we'll go ahead and do like a quarterly one. Start thinking about things you want to highlight. It doesn't have to go out next week. It doesn't have to go out, just like whenever we get to it, but just start thinking about it. And if you think of something, go ahead and.
So you can come up with that, like when, what months maybe, for it to come out, maybe like December, spring, summer?
We'll get thoughts too as to what strategically might be the
Yes.
best times of year to do that.
Yeah, because I feel like the message would change based on.
Yes, it does.
When it's come, you know what I'm saying?
Right, right,
So if
right.
I come up with something now and it doesn't come out until May, well, I would have rather highlighted
right.
something.
Okay, so maybe let's get a quarterly calendar that would be
Most
beneficial.
likely time
And then-
to do that.
Because we have our internal one goes out the first Friday of every month, and then we do have a quarterly one that goes out to all families from Superintendent Brodsky, and it always goes out about a week before the quarter ends to kind of like wrap up what he's been doing throughout and seeing through that 9 weeks. It also it always puts the correct calendar in there as well every time, but then it does feature some of the events that have gone on during that time period as well. So kind of
maybe
like
if we look
puts a
at
little
our-
bow on the quarter.
What if we look at our agendas for the past year and kind of see what are we typically celebrating, you know, in a quarter?
Or just align it with the superintendent's. We're not gonna steal your spotlight, are we? If we do that? Do it like a week later. We could do a week later.
See, yes, for me, so to make it like user
To
friendly.
make it easy for you.
I would think you guys could think of, because I know where you're going with this, right? You could have like, policy spotlight section. You could have another little column that was like, you know, what's happening. So there's ways to, and I know that Ms. Dennison knows what I'm talking about, and especially in Canva, where you could have like policy spotlight, and you could keep it there every month, every quarter, right? And there's something we want to spotlight, and you could have school board happenings. Like I just went and strolled through our new building, and the pictures are phenomenal. I mean, I would love for people to see how great our new additions are. It could be something like that, what's happening. So I would be really comfortable if we could find some areas where we could just contribute to that and make it simple for us. Maybe one month you have a policy you'd like to spotlight, and that would be great, right? So if we had a format like that, which is not complicated, I don't want to overcomplicate it.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is supposed to be super simple, and just, my purpose is just to say, hey, we're here if you need us, it's whatever. And then, like I said, if it makes it easy for you to just keep it on his schedule, send it out a couple of days later, then that would be easy, I think.
Well, it just, you know, the biggest accomplishment y'all done is y'all overhauling your policies.
Yeah,
And they haven't been done in 30 or 40 years. Maybe start with that, that y'all, you know, something simple like we are doing the first, you know, review of policy that, what, in 30, 40 years, you know, something like that. That's a major accomplishment, and you know, each of y'all highlighted that. You're not really commenting on the policy because it hasn't been adopted yet, just saying that the board is, you know, educate the public on what y'all are doing with the district, so.
All right, well, we can talk further on that. I didn't want to spend too much time on that. I just wanted to throw that out there and see if everybody was good with it. And I think we covered all the other stuff. I wanted to do the committee assignments and then talk about presenting our committees to each other. I went to additional training, and I'm trying to read my notes here, and I don't understand what I was meaning because I had so many, and it was such a good training. It was very good. We had sheriff come in from down south, talk about safety and security. We had the Department of Education there. There was a lot of things that I'm going to share throughout, so I apologize ahead of time. Some things I learned, and one note that I do have is about asking Barbara to come. And then there was another individual that I'll probably talk to Mr. Brodsky about, but this lady, she's not in the state of Florida, and her specialty is ESE, IEPs, all of that, and her sole job is essentially, because we know how complex it is, to help. And I know we've done a great job. I know the Department of Education has come in and viewed us and all of that, but she comes in and helps you grow your ESE department and helps you, just gives you suggestions. She doesn't come in and dictate. She doesn't come in, she's like a Barbara for ESE, for, give us board's suggestions. But that would also mean that she would have to speak with district staff and see where we are. But it's just an idea. She's been very successful. I can give you her name. I don't have it right here, so I will find it. I can give you her name and you guys can research her. And but she had a lot of good things to say, and I know with our large ESE population, I think it would be good just to hear her out. But other than that, I think that's it, and maybe take like 5-10 minutes and then we'll go next door.
Yeah, as soon as we can.
Okay, so he's adjourned.
Okay.